This Week 13 slate of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, is brought to you by a presenting sponsor, Aligned Health Center. Aligned Health Center is the first chiropractic biophysics clinic in Northern Ohio. The team at Aligned Health Center helps patients with back pain, neck pain, migraines, ADHD, digestive issues, sleep disturbance, whiplash, scoliosis, and much more. And along with chiropractic biophysics, Aligned Health Center is also the leading clinic in regenerative medicine. You may have heard of it as stem cell injections. And listen, you don't have to be an NBA player to get this done or have this treatment. If you have lower back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, arthritis, if it stops you from getting on the golf course, check out the Regenerative Medicine Clinic at Aligned Health Center. Come in for a free consultation, get some imaging done and x-rays to see how Aligned Health Center can help you. There are no multiple shots, and it's complete with physical therapy built into the process, so there's no downtime. And look, it gets even better. Aligned Health Center doesn't charge people for x-rays or exams, and they don't bill you later. They let you know right up front, right away, how much it's going to cost. They are transparent. Listen, they are number one for a reason. Call Aligned Health Center today at 440-385-7357 or visit their website at alignedhealthcenters.com to make an appointment and to learn more about how Aligned Health Center can help you. Again, that's 440-385-7357 or visit alignedhealthcenters.com. I also have to mention the Press Play Podcast Network. Next week we are launching a new show. Up next, hosted by Kristen Aviles and Christina Walter, is a show all about your favorite streaming content on Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime Video, and everything in between. If you love something on those streaming places, they're going to talk about it. You don't want to miss it. And we still have the Phenomenal CBD podcast, rocking and rolling, the premier fantasy football podcast with Tito going over all the fantasy football implications for the free agency and NFL moves. Our Swinging a Tribe MLB podcast is back in action with the Cleveland Baseball Club in spring training. Check that out. Jeremy Powell and I are free agency footballs deep and NFL and Browns content with our Oranges Orange Browns podcast. And did I mention we're launching a new show? Up Next, the first episode drops March 24th. You can search for Up Next, subscribe now, listen to the trailer, and anxiously await the first episode with the rest of us. It's going to be fantastic. In this episode, Sam and I talk about the Cavs losing streak, their struggles on the road, their lack of a veteran presence. We play Overreaction or On Point and look ahead to the rest of Week 13 slate and the start of Week 14. We're going to be recording every Tuesday evening, so we look forward to talking Cavs with you every Wednesday morning, every Wednesday afternoon, or whenever you listen and check us out. But whenever you do, thank you so much. Without further ado, enjoy the show.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the editor and writer at 48minutes.com, the assistant editor at Outkick.com. You heard that right, Outkick.com. He is our Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, you got to be doing better than the Cavs right now, brother.
I feel like I've only lost a couple in a row. They've lost 4 in a row. So, yeah, I guess I'm doing better. Yep. Although I do have this weird, are you picking up that weird chirping noise?
I am not.
Coming from my basement where my wife banishes me to record these podcasts. Okay, good.
I am not. Although
I'll ignore it too then.
We did have a chirping sound at 3 a.m. a couple nights ago, and it was a fire alarm. That battery was going dead. So maybe if you have a fire alarm, that might be it, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, the Cavs 14-24 since the All-Star break. I know they lost one before the All-Star break, I think. They've lost 3 out of the All-Star break. And honestly, Sam, they haven't really been close. They lost to the Pelicans March 12th, 116-82, a shellacking. Just like, what is going on? Then they lost to the Hawks, the surging Hawks with our guy, Coach McMillan. Big fans of Coach Nate on the Cavs on the Break. We love Coach Nate. I texted my friends. I said, you're going to love Coach Nate. And he's like, no, we're not. He's been the assistant here, and he's been over he was just like not sold on Coach Nate.
Oh,
they've won like 8
coach.
Straight games since he's taken over.
Yeah, he's a fantastic coach.
Love it,
really
love
is.
it. Good for him. Big fan of that. And then they lost to the Heat tonight. The Heat, who again, I think they've been undefeated since Jimmy Buckets has come back, where they're 10-1. Like,
yes.
They've been playing incredible basketball.
Yeah.
And so, Sam, I talked about this as I was introducing everyone on the live. The Cavs can't keep playing against these awesome teams all the time, because that's part of the NBA. You're going to be like, you can't just keep having really rough road trips, or they just ran into this really, really good streaking team. That can't just be your team's excuse or story. But I feel like for the past couple months, that's been where the Cavs have lived. And I'm about sick of the excuses, man, because you just can't keep saying, oh, this team was just playing really well. You need to be playing really well. You need to be playing really well. And the Cavs are not doing that at all.
No, well, they're
I'm a little fired up. Sorry.
What's that?
A little fired up. Sorry about that.
I'm used to it. I think they played a little better tonight. They kind of got in that hole in the first quarter, but and I thought they did some things defensively than they've done, better than they've done since the break. But I also, they couldn't put the ball in the basket for a little while there. Mm-hmm. And I would say tonight, I'm not making excuses for the team, but I thought that if you're just talking about this game in particular, they played better, they played harder, played with a little bit more energy, particularly in that fourth quarter. They kept fighting, but they were just overmatched. They were told Jimmy Butler, they don't have anybody compared to him. And the Heat are obviously super hot right now. They were at home. Mm-hmm. For a team like Cavs, the odds were stacked against them, but that shouldn't override some of the things that we've seen with them that you really can't be pleased with. I'd say over the past month, even going back to before the All-Star break a little bit.
Yeah. I want to do something new on the pod, and we've kind of flirted with it a couple times. Sam, I want to pretend like you're the coach. It's Coach Amico, and you have the Cavs, this young squad in the locker room. There's a lot of distractions going on with the team. Sam, let's say you are Coach Bickerstaff, but you're Coach Amico. What are you telling the team right now, looking at a 4-game homestand coming up down the pike? What are you telling the team right now just to kind of get them focused and get them back on track?
The first thing that I know Coach Bickerstaff does tell them this, is you have to be, you're obviously, you got to be focused, but you've got to come out and play with energy right off the bat. You can't kind of, and young players can do this. They can kind of try to feel their way around the game a little bit. We see Isaac Okoro doing that quite a bit. Mm-hmm. In his defense, he usually has to defend the best player on the other team every single night, regardless of what the guy's position is, unless he's a center. So, don't overthink things. Come out, play with energy, and really lock in like you did in the fourth quarter against the Heat defensively, because when you're at home, that can overcome a lot of things. So, that's basic coach speak. But it really doesn't go beyond that, because what you're doing here is you're trying to get these young guys to play the right way all the time, and as a unit the right way together. And in order to do that, you can't get down when the shots aren't dropping. It seems like this team can get down on itself, as most teams do, when the shots aren't falling, and they don't have the personnel to be an explosive offensive team at this time. They have some explosive individuals. Obviously, Colin Sexton can fill it up, but as a team, they don't have. You're not talking about the Golden State Warriors here that have a system and all the pieces and parts that kind of make that system work. At least when Golden State was healthy 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
you're a team that's going to be undermanned compared to the competition most nights. So you've got to scrap. And I remember Coach Bickerstaff at the beginning of the season said this, and the Cavs exemplified it early in the season, but they haven't exemplified it consistently probably the last 20 or 30 games. And that's, we want the other team to really not want to play us. They don't like playing us because we're pesky. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, then you don't, this is a developmental season, a season of rebuilding and all that. In order to do, you don't need to worry about the wins and losses so much as you do letting the other team know that you're on the floor and playing with passion and playing with energy and just making them make the other team be annoyed with you. And right now, that's really what the story for, especially the 4 young guys, when you talk about Sexton, Garland, Okoro, and Jared Allen, and you can even throw, Larry Nance Jr., who is that type of player, a little bit older than those guys, but those are the 5 main guys to me in this core. I think everybody else, you want them to play that way, but their futures are all very unknown.
Sam, do you feel like there's a lack of veteran presence on the team that maybe could help with this focus or just with the grind of the season? I mean, they're still young players that they're still adjusting to an 80. Well, it's not 82 game season. I mean, they've not had a normal first couple years in the league. Do you feel like that could be a concern with the team?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, JaVale McGee is a guy who's won, some championships with Golden State and the Lakers. He's a very positive voice in the locker room. Very good in terms of leadership. He doesn't necessarily going to have the respect of just in terms of a player, of a LeBron James or of a Steph Curry, but he can tell those guys and does, hey, I've played with those guys. I know how they approach the game. Here's how you approach it when you're a teammate, and so I think that helps. Kevin Love obviously been hurt, but he's not that kind of guy anyway. He's more, and this is not a shot at Kevin, this is just realistic. He's more of a guy who is one of the guys. He's not going to step out and say, we need to do this the right way and do this and that. He just doesn't have that strong voice. It's just not his personality. He's more of a leader by being their friend and being one of them and encouraging them that way. So to answer your question, yes, they could probably use, another guy who's quote unquote been there, even if it's a washed up veteran. I kind of was pushing for them to sign Jamal Crawford before the season, even though he's 4 years old now, but he would have come, he was in Phoenix when they were bad, and he really helped the development. Everybody there will tell you he helped the development of Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and some of those other young guys. He played a role. You need that kind of older guy who's the coach on the floor who doesn't mind, he's not out there ring chasing because he's at the end of his career. He's has another purpose, like Vince Carter did with the Hawks last season, actually. So I think they could really use a guy like that, especially with Delly out. That hurts a lot too, So, I would think that if you asked me to be the coach, which I probably did a lousy job of, but if I'm the general manager, I'm looking at, 48 minutes. Amico's website runs this list every week of their veteran free agents who are available out there. And I would check that thing 3 times and say, Jamal Crawford's still out there. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, but there are other guys like him that I would say one of these guys is going to take a vet minimum. Now, maybe that's the route they go once they get Andre Drummond's contract off the books here.
Can we talk about Andre Drummond? I think that the whole Cavs trading part is becoming a huge distraction for the team. I think it's affecting their play. The fact that there weren't really moves made during the All-Star break. Sam, why did he stop playing so early, and why haven't they done anything with him? Like it's becoming, I think, a bad thing.
Well, yeah, I don't like the air of mystery that has surrounded the team, and I'm not saying that the front office is always wrong in these situations. I just think it opens itself up to question. Honestly, they started this whole thing of sitting guys and not playing them, and it started with J.R. Smith, and then you wondered what happened. Beeline all of a sudden, he's obviously not coaching. Is he working in the front office last year? I mean, there was a big air of mystery about it. And then, Kevin Porter Jr. situation, we know he ran, into some trouble and all that, but why were you holding him out so long? And now here you are again.
We'll talk about him here after the break. Trust me.
Yeah. That's a difficult topic because he's been faring so well in Houston and really tore it up in the G League. But anyway, and then now with Andre Drummond, you've gone through a lot of coaches. If you're Kobe Altman, you've gone through a lot of coaches since LeBron. You've gone through,
and with LeBron too. That's not sugarcoat it. Like with LeBron, he went through a couple of coaches too.
Right? Yeah, that's true. But you've had a lot of first round picks over the last 3 years. What have they had? They had 3 last year. They had Okoro and then Sexton the year before that. So you've had 5 first round picks in 3 years, including 3 lottery picks.
Probably 1 again this year, which again we'll talk about after the break.
And that's not to say you should have a championship team, but I think you should look a lot more like the Atlanta Hawks now. And the Hawks haven't been the picture of stability. They fired Lloyd Pierce, and then they hired another coach. But I think as far as in terms of wins and losses and on-court success, you should kind of look more like the Atlanta Hawks. And what the Atlanta Hawks do over the summer, they went out and got some veterans. They got Gallinari, they got Rondo, they got Bogdanovich. So that has really helped propel them to kind of that next step. So there are a lot of question marks about the Cavs, and with Drummond, does it serve as a distraction? Yeah, of course it does. I mean, the fans, that's really all they talk about. What are they going to get for Andre Drummond? Or will they get anything for Andre Drummond? So, yeah, I mean, the players are just like us, man. They're on social media all the time. They're probably looking at 48 minutes from time to time.
Well, they need to come on the Cavs on the Break podcast. Then.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's they're normal people, and this is a distraction. Sure.
I think what's been difficult is there has been pockets of promise with this season where you could see the plan coming together, and then to see moments like the Pelicans and whatever games before that has slipped my mind. Like it just screams fatigue. It screams a lack of presence, and it screams distractions. I think those 3 things of course they're going to lose. They're terrible on the road, by the way. They're like 5-14. Like they aren't a very good away team. And I see that, and it just screams a lack of veteran leadership, a lack of someone who tells them, hey, like you need to go in and stay in or do whatever and hit the playbook or hit the tape, like whatever they need to do. Like, I don't know. And I feel like that, and they've had injuries. I mean, poor Kevin Love, man, plays a minute and then he's back out and he's just like not in again, man. And any updates on him?
No, I mean, that's kind of a mystery. All I know is we're not there in the locker rooms. Obviously, when you're there in the locker rooms, you get a better sense of what's really going on. It seems like it's something that's been bugging him for a while, and every time he's starting to try to play again, it just there's no real answer. But I agree with you. I think with Andre Drummond, I say awkwardness, but he did not like when Jared Allen came and started taking his minutes. He wasn't. I don't want to say he wasn't engaged, but he's just like anybody else probably who is working at a job, and then they bring in somebody who it's like, yeah, this is a younger version of you who probably fits better with us, and your contract's expiring. So there were some conversations between Andre. I think that again, if you have a player, another veteran who's going to step in and say, look, Andre, we need you right now. Who knows what the future holds, but we need you right now. So just give us everything you got. It's going to work out better for you in the long run. It's going to work out better for us. We can help each other, but they didn't really have that voice. They just had kind of, frankly, a bunch of 21, 22, 19-year-olds kind of just minding their own business, as they should. I mean, they know where their spot is. And if you have another veteran other than just McGee in that situation, maybe it plays out differently.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to play our favorite segment here, overreactions or on point, and then look ahead to week 13 and 14 slate.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomenal CBD store and PhenomenalCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
And me, Christina Walter.
Every other week we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
All right, we are back. Sam, it's time for the greatest segment of all time, and that is not an overreaction. That is on point. Overreactions and on point. Sam, I'm going to provide a hot take. You tell me if that's an overreaction or on point. Let's start off with the first one here. Darius Garland will never play more than 60 games in an NBA season.
I think that's an overreaction. I like to be an optimist and think that he will. You know, and when you look at Steph Curry early in his career, and I only bring that up because they have similar frames and builds. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get your body right for the NBA contact and all that. So I think Darius will be fine.
Well, let's hope, because it seems like when he doesn't play, the Cavs really struggle to get the ball moving on offense, and just kind of throws a cog in whatever they're trying to do. I'm surprised at how important role he plays in the team. It's been a really surprising element to the team this year, is his emergence of a ball distributor and kind of a co-star beside Colin Sexton, Sam.
Well, the ball doesn't move very well amongst the starters when he's not in there. And that's why you signed a guy like Quinn Cook, who you hope can kind of help facilitate if Darius isn't there, because obviously the Matthew Dellavedova injury is fairly serious. So you don't have that really, as much as Colin scores and as much as he kind of ran the point as a rookie. He's really moved away from that, and that, moved off the ball, and that's the toughest position to play. So, it's tough for the ball to get moving and swinging and all that without Darius. And he creates a lot when he goes to the basket. He's definitely the best passer on the team. There's no doubt about that.
Here's another one. The Cavs will have another lottery pick in the upcoming draft.
That's on point. I thought there was a time there where And they still could get into that play-in game play tournament, but you're still a lottery team. They're not going to be, they're not going to finish with one of the top 8 records in the conference. They're just too young, unless they do something at the trade deadline where it's like, wow, they're really pushing themselves forward quickly. And, if they do that, that's coming from above. That's coming from Dan Gilbert, get in the playoffs or else kind of thing. But I don't think he's there yet. And I think that, they're headed back to the lottery is the smart choice between the two, I'd say.
Well, that leads me to my next hot take. The Cavs will be looking for a new coach this time next year.
No, I think that'd be a mistake. I think that, a lot of people blame JB Bickerstaff, but I think he makes the most of and he's had a lot of obstacles, between the injuries at the start of the year, the Drummond situation. I mean, he had to manage that. He kind of had to manage that before Kobe Altman just said, let's sit him. I mean, JB Bickerstaff was there for the whole Kevin Porter Jr. situation.
And the Beeline stuff. I mean, he inherited kind of this
symbol
of a team too.
Right. And I think that JB has shown that when things are connected, it's not totally his job to get, his job is obviously more than X's and O's, but I think that when the team is connected, they overachieved early in the season, and I think that they can do that again. They overachieved in the 11 games that Bickerstaff had them last year. So I would. Plus, you can't have a revolving door of coaches on top of that. That's just a bad look. It's a bad look for, agents who are looking at your franchise, deciding whether or not they want not only to bring guys there. Everybody's like, well, Cleveland's not going to get free agents. Okay, so let's just say that's true. Well, then the concern becomes, can you keep your own guys who are good? You don't want to develop guys for 4 years or 5 years, and then the contract's up, and they're like, you know what? This is so unstable, and we keep losing, and they're so satisfied with just playing the lottery. I'm out of here. Yeah. So, you can't just have a revolving door of coaches, and I mean, if you're okay with playing the lottery every year, then don't fire the coach. I mean, don't blame the coach for losing, because that's what you want to do. So I like JB Bickerstaff, and to make a long story short, I think he's the right guy. And he reminds me kind of Nate McMillan, in the sense that the teams always play scrappy. Mm-hmm. JB's teams aren't quite there yet, but he's getting there. And I just think he has a lot of positive qualities that the Cavs have not seen in a coach in quite some time.
Look, I agree with you. I think they need to ride with him for a couple of years. But Sam, if it's after the All-Star break and they're again after this season in the lottery, still 15-30, then
he'll be gone. He'll be gone. There won't be any question whether you want him to be or not. That's just life in the NBA. Yep. You can't continuously just be this every year and be a coach in the NBA. Nobody's going to tolerate that. I mean, Eric Spoelstra stuck around for so long because the Heat try to win every year, and they give him the roster to do it. and they do. Well, they give him the roster,
It's unfortunate that he's had to deal with the insane amount of just narratives and situations in the Cavs have, but
if you gave JB Bickerstaff the Miami Heat roster, the Miami Heat would probably be the same.
I think they'd be good. I don't want to say he's at Spo's level. I think,
but maybe not yet. No, but
I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I think he is a good NBA coach, and if you give him a roster that he can really play with, that has a direction and all the pieces they need, I think you're not going to be like, oh, that team sucks because of the coach.
Right.
There are some coaches where you're like, oh, that team is held back by the coach.
Yeah, and I've
The
thought of
Bucks.
that of a few Cavs coaches over the past decade.
Yeah, well, I think the Bucks are held back by Coach Bud. Sure, regular season coach. I don't think as long as Coach Bud is the coach of the Bucks that they are going to win an NBA championship. They're just not.
Well, we used to say that about D'Antoni. Same type of thing.
Yep.
Great regular season coach.
Yep.
Playoffs kind of got out-X'd and O'd.
Yes. So, all right, what about this next one? The Cavs will never win another road game ever.
I'm sure they'll get a few in here. Frankly, what did you say their road record is now?
5-14.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have 36. I think that they can get another 5 or 6.
Sure, but gosh, that is just they have not played well on the road.
No, well, that's a young team for you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, young teams don't play well on the road. Role players, your bench at any team, even when they had LeBron, they didn't play well on the road. Yeah, that guy. But I mean, even if you look at the Lakers players, the guys off the bench, other than Harrell, I think he's starting now, but when they're totally healthy, usually the guys off the bench don't play well on the road. That's been a long, been going on forever in the NBA. So
Tress is also starting for my fantasy basketball team as well. So always got to throw my fantasy basketball team in there somehow.
I tweeted about mine the other day. I tweeted that I picked up KPJ. I'm in second next to Jeff Phelps.
Ooh.
I've won 6 in a row, including a win over Phelps to launch the winning streak.
Yep.
And
I picked him up on Sunday as well. That's
probably why people are tuning in to hear why and how well our fantasy teams are doing.
Yeah. Real quick, what's your fantasy team name?
Amigos.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. My team name is my nickname, my friends call me is Che, Chay.
Yeah.
And so it's LeVar Che balls.
Nice. That's just basketball. Football, I go with the Rollins Outlaws. Ooh. Because it's named after a high school that I used to cover in Wyoming for my first job that had lost 53 straight high school football games. So in their honor, and I covered, I think, 38 of them. But anyway, in their honor, I named my fantasy team. And fittingly, I've been in that league 13 years. It's a keeper league, and I've never made the playoffs.
Well, you're honoring them well.
Yeah. I want to keep the tradition alive.
Is there anything worse than talking fantasy on a podcast? Real quick, my football fantasy team name I've been in this league just like you, like since I've been in middle school, like really before it got really, really popular. My team name is the Game of Drones. So it's a picture of Ruben Drones, an old Browns running back with like a dragon head. Just a stupid pun, but okay. Hey, last one here on Overreactions and On Point. The Cavs will get nothing in return for Andre Drummond or Kevin Love.
I don't think they're going to get anything the Cavs fans are thrilled about. I remember one time David Griffin, when he was a Cavs GM, texted me, and I have no idea what's that?
What a flex.
Well, no, I covered the Cavs. He should be texting me. But what I'm saying is he texted me about a trade that they were going to make. And he said, I can't remember what he said, but he didn't tell me who it was. And I can't remember who it was. It was when Griff is before even LeBron came back in that last chunk of season that Griff took over for Chris Grant. And Griff said, we made a trade, but it's not going to be anybody that excites you. Like, oh, thanks for the heads up. And then he told me who it was. And I was like, you're right. I'm not excited. But that's kind of where I feel with Drummond and Love because of the situations. I don't think they're not going to be able to move Love before this deadline because he's just not been healthy. Nobody can unless all of a sudden he comes back and has a great, 7 days before the deadline, which is, doesn't sound like it's going to happen. Drummond, it's going to be tough. I wrote dribbles tonight for the first time in who knows how long on the Cavs. And, the one thing I said about Drummond is, what'd they give up to get him? Nothing. Yeah. Well, that's why the Pistons gave him up. This whole situation is why the Detroit Pistons gave him up for nothing. So if you give up nothing to get a guy, odds are you're not going to get anything for him. Well, that's, again, that goes back to a front office decision that I don't agree with, and that's sitting these guys. And then you gave Kevin Porter Jr. away. Yeah. I don't understand. I understand the situation that was reported in the locker room with him screaming at Kobe Altman and all that. Sure. But I also know that he sat for 3 weeks without knowing why, other than he had that off-season issue. Well, you know what? I mean, come on. That's up to the law to decide. He was the charges were dropped. So let the guy play. He's healthy. He wants to play. And then he walks in the locker room, Chase, and his locker's been replaced. And you're doing this to a guy who's, 19, 20 years old. That's supposed to be your foundational piece. I'm not saying he reacted the right way because he didn't.
Right.
But I almost understand.
Sure.
You put a person in a position where they feel like they're really being treated unfairly for no reason. And, this wasn't a league mandated suspension.
Right.
This was something that the Cavs, we're holding him out. Now he's back in practice. I mean, the whole time he's like, what is going on here? Then he walks in the locker room and he was probably already upset a little, but he was probably already a little insecure about, them trading for Prince and all this. And yeah, I mean, his reaction was out of line. There's no question about that. But I think that the Cavs mishandled it from the beginning.
I am so happy for him thriving in Houston. And I hope that they surround him with players and coaches that have his best interest in mind, not only his skill, but just like as a person, and that he continues to thrive. Didn't Houston originally draft him? Isn't that like the funny thing about this?
Detroit actually drafted him. Okay. But I think they actually had Houston's pick or something. Okay. I don't know. It was something because Detroit wouldn't have had the 30th pick naturally, right, because of their record. So they got him from somewhere, or they got that pick from somewhere. But, for me, I could say this last season from, September until the pandemic in March, I was in the locker room, and I don't just say this, and this isn't the reason I think the Cavs should keep him. There was not and there's a ton of cordial guys in there. Larry Nance Jr., Colin Sexton's quiet, but he's very cordial, very polite, regular guy. There was nobody more authentic than Kevin Porter Jr. and just a guy, I mean, I'm old enough to be the guy's dad, and for him to he didn't look at me like, well, who's this old guy coming up to ask me questions? And I think that the other reporters will tell you the same. He's a wonderful guy. He's had some issues and ran into some problems, but I think he's a good person with a big heart, and I love to see him have success in Houston. As difficult as it is for the Cavs and their fans to see that, it's good to see if you're rooting for him as a person.
Hasn't made the poor Cavs play an easier pill to swallow, that's for sure.
He's exactly what they need.
Yeah, he really is.
I mean, he's exactly what they need right now. The way he's playing is precisely the type of player that they're looking for.
Sam, thank God for the Browns.
That, you know what? I don't care. And obviously I want him to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl and all that. But I mean, just that win in the playoffs, I still watch that first quarter. I mean, about once a week, I'll tune in that first quarter.
We had Nathan Segura on the Browns, on our Browns pod today, the Orange is Oranger, and we asked him some of his favorite moments of the season, like when he thinks back 10 years from now, of this like monumental season, and he talked, Sam, 30 minutes straight, uninterrupted, just about the season, and his face was glowing, and we were all smiling, and it was just like, it was.
Beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh that was just.
Well, that does it for the greatest segment of all time, and that's a fact. Hey, Sam, one more thing before we wrap things up here. Looking ahead to the rest of week 13 and 14 slate, we are going to be at home for the next 4 games. On tomorrow, actually, we play tomorrow at the Rock. We host the Celtics at 8. Friday, we host the Spurs. See if they'll trade LaMarcus Aldridge. We don't know. They're kind of, not playing him as well. Sunday, the 21st, we host the Raptors. And Monday, we host the Kings. So all of a sudden, you look at the Raptors, you look at the Kings, maybe even squeak one out against the Spurs. They could, Sam, find a way to have a winning record of these next couple games.
And I could grow a mustache like you. I don't think tomorrow's going to go well because Boston just lost at home, and they actually have a shorter flight to Cleveland, which is those things play a role in your next day. Boston's a very a team that's pretty darn good, that's looking to prove itself, and I can't envision them playing unless the train's really coming off the tracks there with the Celtics. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. The Tristan revenge game. Is it the Tristan revenge game?
Tristan Thompson will be in town. Actually, he is, as far as I knew, he missed tonight's game because of contact tracing. So I don't know what his status is.
No.
At least I think I heard that anyway. I didn't watch that game, so I don't know.
Huh.
But regardless, you have the Celtics, the Spurs, the Raptors, and the Kings. Ideally, you want to get 3 of those.
Yeah.
But you want to play the right way and go back to that team that you were at the beginning of the year, which, win or lose, really not just made the fans proud, but made the organization proud and kind of showed that promise. And part of that, they had Andre Drummond then. But you just kind of want to start showing, win or lose, that you're taking steps in the right direction again, because you're at the point now where the season's almost half over, and where are you going to go from here?
Well, Sam, we'll come at you all again next Tuesday. We got a really good schedule worked out for you guys every Tuesday, looking to bring you a new episode in your phone by Wednesday morning to talk about it and see what happens. And we'll be at the Cavs all season long. Sam, sound good?
That sounds great, Chase.
All right.
I'm always glad to talk to you. And I'm always glad that the readers or followers can get a chance to listen in.
Love it, man. Well, that does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. Follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Catch all of his work and writings at 48minutes.com and outkick.com for breaking news, insider info. Do not miss out. Sam, any final thoughts?
No, that's it. This is the latest I've stayed up in since the last podcast. So I'm probably going to go watch a little bit of basketball and then listen to your voice saying that sound is bringing us in. And you can tell I haven't been stayed up this late because now I'm just rambling. But anyway, I think that our next podcast is going to be very interesting because we'll be 2 days away from the NBA trade deadline. Yes. So nobody was going to want to miss that.
Should be good. Also, can't forget our presenting sponsor, Alliant Health Center. Well, with that, Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.